My husband's creepy coworker started stalking me after my husband passed away, and I accidentally fell for him. I remember sitting at my husband's funeral, trying to breathe through the suffocating weight of grief when I noticed a man in the back. He was staring at me, not the sympathetic glance of a mourner, but something else. Something that made my skin crawl even through the fog of my loss. That man was Mark, one of David's coworkers. David had actually warned me about him once, months before he died. We were lying in bed, the kind of late-night conversation where everything feels safe and honest. "Listen," David said, his voice unusually serious. "There's this guy at work, Mark. He's weird about you." "Weird how?" He asks questions. "Personal ones? What time you get home? Where you like to shop? He saw your picture on my desk once and he wouldn't stop talking about how beautiful you were. I laughed it off. He's probably just lonely." "It's more than that." David sat up, his expression troubled. "He's obsessed. I've seen the way he looks at your photos. Just promise me you'll be careful. If I'm not around, don't talk like that. I mean it. If anything ever happened to me, stay away from him. He's not right." I promised him I would. I meant it at the time. I had no idea how easily grief would make me forget. The weeks after David died were a blur of sleepless nights and endless tears. The apartment we'd shared became a torture chamber of memories. Every corner held a piece of him. His coffee mug still sat in the sink. His jacket still hung by the door. I couldn't look at any of it without breaking down. So I did what any grieving widow might do in a moment of desperation. I started throwing things out. The couch we'd picked out together, the dining table where we'd shared so many meals, the bookshelf he'd built with his own hands. I destroyed it all. I needed the reminders gone. I needed the pain to stop. That's when Mark started appearing. The first time I noticed him was at the coffee shop down the street from my apartment. I was sitting alone, staring blankly at my latte, when I heard a familiar voice. "Mind if I sit?" I looked up and there he was. Mark, dressed in a simple button-up shirt, holding a cup of coffee, wearing an expression of gentle concern. "Of course," I said, my voice hollow. "Please." He sat across from me and didn't push for conversation. He just sat there sipping his coffee, letting me exist in my grief. When I started crying silently into my cup, he quietly slid a napkin toward me. "That was David's favorite coffee shop," he said softly. "He used to talk about coming here with you." I nodded, unable to speak. "I'm sorry. I know this is hard. I don't want to intrude. I wanted to make sure you were okay." That simple act of kindness broke something open in me. I started talking. About David, about how we met, about how he'd died. Mark listened. He nodded. He made all the right sounds of sympathy. "David was a good man," he said when I finished. "He talked about you constantly. He was so proud of you. He was my whole world," I whispered. "And now you have to figure out how to live without him." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's not easy. But you're stronger than you think." I should have pulled my hand away. I should have remembered David's warning. But I was so desperate for comfort, so starved for human connection, that I let him hold on a moment too long. That was the beginning. After that, Mark was everywhere. Every time I went outside, there he was. At the grocery store, coincidentally reaching for the same brand of cereal. At the park where I walked to clear my head, just happening to be jogging the same path. At the restaurant where I grabbed dinner alone, fancy seeing you here. He was always helpful, always kind. When I struggled to carry groceries, he appeared to help. When I moved into a smaller apartment to escape the memories, he showed up with a moving van and insisted on carrying the heaviest boxes. "You don't have to do this," I told him as he lugged my couch up 3 flights of stairs. "I want to," he said, flashing a warm smile. "You've been through so much. Let someone take care of you for once." I started to look forward to seeing him. I told myself it was just nice to have a friend. Someone who understood what I was going through. Someone who didn't expect me to be okay. But the first time we grabbed coffee together, just the two of us, something felt off. We sat in a quiet corner of the cafe, and he was the perfect gentleman. He pulled out my chair. He insisted on paying. He asked about my day with genuine interest, and I found myself enjoying it. For the first time since David died, I laughed at something. I felt present. I felt seen. But when I went home that night, I couldn't sleep. Something was gnawing at me. I started replaying our encounters in my head, and the pieces began to click together. He was there at every grocery store, every coffee shop, every place I went. I checked my phone. I'd never given him my number, yet he always seemed to know where I'd be. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He was stalking me. He'd been stalking me since the funeral. And I'd been too broken, too desperate for comfort to see it. He'd been preying on me, taking advantage of my vulnerability. And now he was convinced I was into him because I'd agreed to go for coffee, because I'd let him help me, because I'd smiled at his jokes. I felt so stupid. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, David's warning echoing in my head. "Stay away from him. He's not right." "You were right," I whispered to the empty room. "You were right." And I didn't listen. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to get this psycho out of my life. I was going to grieve in peace. I was going to stand my ground. I was terrified, but I was also determined. I wouldn't let him take anything else from me. The next day, I went to the grocery store. I knew he'd be there. He always was. I walked through the aisles, feeling his eyes on me before I even saw him. At first, I shook off the feeling. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was projecting. Then I turned into the cereal aisle, and there he was. standing at the end, pretending to study a box of oatmeal. My heart started racing. I pretended not to see him. I grabbed a box of cereal and moved to the next aisle. He followed. I saw him in my peripheral vision, peeking around the shelves. When I looked up, he ducked behind a display of tomato sauce, trying to look casual. I kept moving. He kept following. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, he was there, always pretending to be looking at something nearby. He picked up a box of spaghetti, examined it, put it back, picked up a jar of marinara, put it back, all while keeping me in his peripheral vision. I reached the dairy section and grabbed a carton of eggs. In the reflection of the glass doors, I saw him standing a few feet away, pretending to check expiration dates on yogurt. Our eyes met in the glass. For a split second, he froze. Then he ducked behind a display of cheese and knocked over a stack of shredded packages. I couldn't take it anymore. I left my cart right there and headed for the exit. I needed to get out, but just as I reached the door, I heard his voice behind me. "Hey, wait up! Fancy seeing you here!" I turned. He was jogging toward me, a grin on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Listen," I said before he could start. "I have to go. I have errands." "Errands? I can come with you. I'm free all day. No thank you. I'm fine on my own." I didn't wait for his response. I walked out, got in my car, locked the doors, and sat there shaking. After that day, I stopped going to that grocery store. I started going to one across town, but then I started seeing him at the coffee shops I visited, at the bookstores, at the park. Always the same story. Always a coincidence. He'd sit at a table by the window, nursing a coffee for hours, just watching. When I walked in, he'd act surprised. His smile always made my stomach turn. Weeks went by. His appearances became more frequent. I tried to ignore him. I tried to pretend he didn't exist. But his persistence wore me down. One evening, after a particularly rough day, I found myself at the coffee shop again. I was exhausted. The memories of David were overwhelming. I felt so alone, so hollow, and there was Mark, right on cue. He approached my table, his face etched with concern. "You okay?" I shook my head. "You look like you could use a friend." He sat down across from me without asking. "We've already grabbed coffee a few times. Maybe you wouldn't mind if I sat with you for a while." I knew I should say no. I knew I should walk away. But I was so tired, so lonely. I nodded. We talked for hours. He asked about David. I told him stories. He listened with such apparent interest. He said all the right things. He made me feel like I wasn't alone. "You know," he said, "David talked about you all the time. He was always so proud of you. He used to say he didn't deserve you." I choked back tears. "He was the best thing that ever happened to me. And now you're left picking up the pieces." He reached across the table. "That's not fair. You deserve to be happy again." I pulled my hand away. "I'm not ready for that. I know. I'm not asking you to be. I'm just saying, I'm here. Whatever you need." I looked at him. For a moment, I saw someone who genuinely cared. I saw someone who could help me through the darkness. "Maybe we could continue this conversation somewhere more private," he suggested. "My place is just a few blocks away." Against every instinct screaming inside me, I nodded. His apartment was small but neatly kept, clean, sparsely decorated. He poured us glasses of wine and we sat on his couch. The warmth of the alcohol slowly eased the tension from my body. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I'd warned myself not to do something like this. But here I was. "It must have been a rough few months," he said softly. I nodded, feeling a lump form in my throat. "I feel so lost." Like part of me died with him. He reached out and held my hand. "Grief isn't linear. It's messy, complicated. There's no right or wrong way to feel." I opened up completely. I told him how often I replayed David's last moments, wondering if I could have done something differently. I told him how guilty I felt for even being here. He squeezed my hand. "David loved you. He wanted you to be happy." I know he did. Then he looked me in the eyes. "I know how much you loved him. But now you have to take care of yourself." His sincerity was disarming. For the first time in a long while, I felt truly seen, understood. One thing led to another. When the sun rose and the birds started chirping, reality hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt sick with regret. I felt like I had betrayed David. "This was a mistake," I said, scrambling out of bed. "I'm still grieving. I can't do this." Mark's expression darkened for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. His smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I understand," he said. "We can take it slow." But he didn't understand. Not really. After that night, his obsession grew. The letters started first. They'd arrive in my mailbox, one after another, each one more desperate than the last. "I can't stop thinking about you. I know you feel it too. I saw it in your eyes. We're meant to be together. Why can't you see that?" Then came the gifts. Flowers left on my doorstep. Chocolates in my mailbox. A locket with our initials engraved. One day, while I was presenting a crucial project update at work, I noticed movement outside the conference room's glass walls. My heart sank. Mark was standing there, holding a bouquet of flowers. He spotted me through the glass and gave me a small wave. I nodded slightly back at him, gesturing that I was busy. I hoped he would take the hint and leave. Instead, he took a seat in the waiting area, the bouquet resting on his lap. I rushed through the rest of my presentation, barely able to focus. When it was finally over, I gathered my notes and walked out. Surprise. He grinned, standing up and holding out the flowers. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "I wanted to surprise you. Lunch?" "I can't. I have back-to-back meetings all day." His smile faded. It would just be quick lunch. I appreciate the gesture, but my project is really important. Maybe another time? You always say that. His voice grew louder. Another time never comes. A few of my coworkers were starting to notice. I could feel their eyes on us. Mark, please. I just need you to understand. I came all the way here for you. His voice cracked. And you can't even spare an hour for me? I tried to calm him down. It's not personal. I just can't leave right now. He took a step toward me, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. It's always something. I'm always here for you. I support you. And you keep pushing me away. I'm not pushing you away. I just need you to... I'm tired of waiting. The words came out sharp, loud. A few coworkers turned to look directly at us. Mark, please, I said, holding my hands up. Let's talk about this another time. When things aren't so... Fine. He stepped back, his face twisted in anger. Fine, I'll go. He threw the bouquet on the ground and walked out. That night, I knew I had to do something. His behavior was becoming dangerous, hostile. I couldn't take any more chances. The next day, I walked into the local courthouse, my heart pounding in my chest. I approached the clerk's desk. I need a restraining order. She handed me forms. I took a seat in the waiting area, opened my folder, and started filling them out. Inside the folder were copies of his letters, photos of the gifts, and a detailed description of his behavior. I also had written statements from my coworkers who witnessed the incident at work. When I finished, I returned the forms. The clerk reviewed them and told me I could see the judge right away. In the judge's chambers, I told him everything. The grocery store, the coffee shop, the workplace incident, the letters, the gifts. The judge nodded, listening carefully. Then he asked, "Do you have any evidence of him being a threat?" I handed him my folder. He flipped through the pages. He looked at the photos. Then he looked up at me. "I understand your concern," he said, "but this isn't enough to grant a restraining order. There's no clear evidence of him causing you harm or making specific threats." My heart dropped. "But he's stalking me. He's following me everywhere. I'm scared of what he'll do next." "I'm sorry," the judge said. "Legally, I can't issue an order based on what you've shown me." I left the courthouse feeling defeated. I had tried to protect myself, and I'd failed. As weeks turned into months, Mark's behavior became more unpredictable. The messages he left were no longer desperate. They were threatening. "You think you can get rid of me? We're meant to be together. I won't let you push me away. I know where you live. I know where you work. I know everything." I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow. One night, I was jolted awake by the sound of glass shattering. My heart was pounding. I realized someone was breaking into my house. I scrambled out of bed, grabbed my phone from the nightstand, and ran to the bathroom. I locked myself inside and fumbled to dial 911. "There's someone in my house," I whispered. "Please send help." I could hear his voice on the other side of the door. He was enraged. "Open the door." He banged on the wood, making it shudder. We were meant to be together. "Why can't you see that?" The 911 operator told me to stay still. Help was on the way. The door shook as he pounded on it. I could hear him trying to break it down. I pressed myself against the cold tile floor, my heart racing, my breath coming in shallow gasps. Then the pounding stopped. I heard footsteps retreating. A moment later, sirens. When the police arrived, Mark was gone. They took my statement and began a search for him. They found him a few blocks away. He looked disheveled and was carrying a knife. He was arrested. When they searched his apartment, they found a notebook filled with pages upon pages of obsessive notes. Details about my daily routines, places I visited often, information about my friends and family. A detailed map of my neighborhood with my house marked and various routes highlighted. Alongside it was a small black duffel bag containing zip ties, duct tape, and a large hunting knife. The reality of what he had planned overwhelmed me. He hadn't just been stalking me. He had been preparing to kidnap me, to hurt me, maybe even to kill me. His deranged plans were exposed. He would face justice. That provided a small measure of relief. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. I still remained deeply shaken. I realized just how close I had come to being seriously hurt, or worse. In the months that followed, I took steps to regain control of my life. I moved to a new house. I installed a comprehensive security system. I got therapy to help process the trauma. Gradually, I began to heal. But the scars of that night and of the months of stalking that preceded it were always with me. Some nights, I still woke up in a cold sweat, convinced I could hear his voice on the other side of my door. But I also learned something important. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. I had survived something terrible. I had faced my fears and come out the other side. I learned to cherish David's memories without letting them overshadow my life. I carried him with me, but I no longer let his absence consume me. The future still felt uncertain. I still had moments of sadness and fear, but I knew one thing for sure. I would never let fear dictate my life again. I had been manipulated, preyed upon, almost destroyed. But I was still standing, still breathing, still fighting, and that was something. David used to say I had a warrior's heart. When we first met, he told me he fell in love with my strength. "You don't give up," he'd say. "You don't back down. That's what makes you beautiful." He was right. I had forgotten that after he died. I had let grief strip away my armor. I had let a predator slip through the cracks. But I remembered now. I think about David often. I talk to him sometimes when I'm alone. I tell him I'm sorry I didn't listen. I tell him I miss him. I tell him I'm trying my best. And sometimes on the good days, I think I hear him whispering back. Not in words, Just a feeling, a warmth in my chest, a sense that he's proud of me. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I'll ever love again. I don't know if I'll ever fully trust anyone again, but I know I'll be okay, because I'm still standing. And that's enough. If you made it this far, thank you for reading. Writing this down has been painful, but also healing. I needed to get it out. I needed to remind myself that I'm a survivor. Take care of yourselves. Trust your instincts. And if someone makes you feel unsafe, don't ignore it. Don't do what I did. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And that's all any of us can do.